And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Interlude Media. Spell that right, NTRLD _ media. I'm your host, Nick DeSantis. You might know me as Nicky Nicknames. And of course, today I'm joined by my co-host, the man holding it down on the ones and twos. That is Todd Roshong. You might know him as T. Rowe Price because he does understand that return on investment. And this right here is the Interlude Pod, an idea to an idea. A podcast where two friends are chopping it up regarding the latest news you didn't know you needed to know, with the goal of teaching you something new and us how to run a podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, I would be remiss if I don't mention that each one of these episodes is mixed, mastered, edited, and produced by none other than One Time Productions. So thank you for tuning in with us today. T, take it away with the agenda.
Welcome back, episode 17, Nick. I gotta be honest here. For our real dedicated, lovely listeners that we have, they're in for a treat. You know why? Because last week we didn't get the chance to record until Thursday in the week, and then due to some extenuating circumstances throughout the course of the weekend, the episode never got edited, never got posted. So here we are recording today on January 20th, Tuesday. Episode just went live this morning. We're recording tonight. This episode will probably be out on, I would say, Thursday. So our fans are going to be getting 2 interlude episodes this week out of us. A little bit out of our usual cadence. I think we've typically tried to record on Mondays, post on Wednesdays, or record on Tuesdays, post on Thursdays. So normally that kind of like mid to second half of the week is when the episodes have gone out. But this week, they're in for a treat. So for our listeners, if you did listen into episode 16 from a couple days ago now, you heard that Nick and I were spending a good bit of time talking about the future of Interlude and where we're at and where we're going. We're going to jump right back into that conversation. I think we've got some ideas that we've come up with and some additional conversations that we've had off the pod, so we're ready to share those ideas with you. And then after that, we're going to keep things kind of light this episode. We've got some random ideas that have come to us. I guess it's a little bit of a this just in, but really it's just kind of a funny topic that we wanted to delve into. And then, as always, folks, you know Nicky Nicknames has his parting inspiration for you.
Oh, yup. Oh, watch out. Let me get singing.
Nah.
Hey, one time.
Well, before we get to singing, on the topic of music, right? I mean, this is Interlude Media. Interludes in music. They're the bridges that help to tell the full story. They provide a way of expression for the artist that maybe is something different from the usual tracks that are going on, and it completes the album. And so, staying in the theme of music, it's kind of how Interlude got started. I know we've talked a lot about music on this show, the way that it's important to us. It's something that we've always been passionate about. And so last week we were talking about, we got comfortable with what Interlude has been, where we would hop on, we would do a This Just In, we would do a spins and flips, we would do some sports stuff, we would do some current events, and then we hopped off. And like we said, it works, but is it really going to grow a community? And are we really ever going to be proud of putting out this type of product? And I think we both kind of collectively came to the answer of no. That format was good because it got us out here, but on a go-forward basis, it's not something that we are going to love, and it's not something that we necessarily think is going to take Interlude where we initially wanted it to get to. And so this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more about what those ideas could be on how to really keep this thing growing, evolving, and turning it into a passion project for us, but also something that a listener base can really grow around.
Did you practice that one?
No, that was completely off the top of the head.
That was pretty good. I appreciate it. It wasn't from Fernando Mendoza, but that was pretty good.
No, I mean, he was pretty fly there in the fourth quarter. We got to be honest.
You kind of summed it up, I think, right there. Then people don't even have to listen to episode 16 now.
I guess that's true, but if you want to go back and give us a listen, we would appreciate that. Of course,
there's some more details. There's some more. You know what Todd just did right there. Episode 16. That's the Order of the Phoenix. What Todd just did. That's the 5th movie. You get it. You get it. Look cool. All that. But if you need some more details, you go back to
For sure.
You know
For
how
sure.
it goes. That was beautiful, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Second, you called our fans the lovely listeners. That's gorgeous. Just a quick L&L. I always think of L&Ls as lunch and learns in the media advertising world. A vendor comes in, brings us lunch. And I always love a lunch and learn. So why don't we bring the L&L back right here?
We could lean into the L&L.
Hey,
if this is
back,
supposed to be.
This is your lunch break. I got you. Don't even worry.
Yeah, you could absolutely.
Right, come on.
We get these episodes posted early morning Eastern time, so you could listen to this during your lunch break. Absolutely. But this podcast was created to kind of be our 5 to 9 after our 9 to 5, right? Something that gets us out of the corporate workplace. But at the same time, there are so many corporate isms that we use on a day-to-day basis, whether they are actually at work or not. So yeah, let's bring the L&L into the podcast. Those are our lovely listeners.
The L&L, bro. That's it. Switch them up. That's how it goes.
For sure. So yeah, Nick, I don't know if you wanna kick us off and jump into a little bit of some of the ideas that we've had as to how Interlude just might continue to evolve and take shape. And I think you and I are gonna have a little bit of discussion on this. We briefly talked about it, but it sounds like you have had some more ideas that have come to you over the past couple of days when I was out of town, and so I'm eager to hear your thoughts and see where we go here.
Right. Okay. So I think end of the day, you got to pick one topic and probably move forth with what that may be. And I think for us, probably the thing that has more of a lasting impact instead of chasing online streams per se would be the spins and flips section that we have. Even that could be too big. So we'll have to see how we want to go from there. But I think first we probably would start in a spins variety, meaning an album. I think that the debate comes down to, do you create something that's more of like a book club-esque vibe where you listen to an album? And so like for us, this would be a pretty easy lift. We would decide on an album, pick it, and then review it live right here. Right. So we could just go through the tracks, do that, talk about whatever we wanted to stem from that situation. Or, and I think this was an idea kind of that you were having, which is create a seasons approach. So do we, from that aspect, do you take like a city? Do you take a certain artist? And kind of deep dive what that situation is. So for example, like, it would just be all Seattle grunge music. I don't know. Right. Like, and you just focus in on a scene, or do you take an artist? If we're going to stick with Seattle, Van Haggerty, Return of the Mac, Macklemore. Well, and would we just dissect something like that, right? And like go through who he was, what that is, how he got to the point that they're at, right? So you could do more of a deep dive of an artist. I think you can still do that if you do just an album review. My head kind of goes towards album review because I like it. I think it's more fun. The thing is, it is less of a lift. So, deep diving could be interesting, but at the same time, you never know where any of this would go, right? It's still early. Yeah. So could try kind of a combo approach of both.
Yeah, no, I like everything you're describing here. And this is, again, just kind of calling back to what we talked about last week, where we are still in the early innings here, right? This is episode 17 that we're on now, shout out. That's great that we've made it this far, but who knows how long that this thing is going to go. And so we still have the freedom to experiment with kind of whatever format we want. And so to touch on both of those two ideas that you just listed out there, to your point, by doing kind of like a book club in a sense, or an album club, or an art club almost, if we wanted to kind of give ourselves the opportunity to keep both spins and flips potentially, then I kind of like the book club approach because, not only is it operationally pretty straightforward to do, you've got a lot of vinyls. So obviously you could play things in that medium and then I could stream them, or if it's something totally random that we come up with, we both stream it, whatever. I think it would be interesting because I imagine you do have the knowledge here. It would be very interesting to get your take on the differences between those two mediums and if there really is a different listening experience between the two. But that's a separate kind of deep dive episode that maybe we could go down at one point.
I think, well, I mean, even just quickly answering that, I just don't know how much of a conversation that would be unless you get really audio technical. So I think that would be like a one episode thing. There is something. So I do have a book club with some people at work, which is it's this concept where we review rap albums. And one of the latest ones that we did was Watch the Throne, which is that Kanye and Jay-Z album from back in the day. And there's subtle differences in that album from the physical copy than what's actually online, and that's not something that's like abnormal. So that is one interesting thing that I believe I would be able to bring to the table with the physical mediums that could be a talk concept, but I don't think that's worthy of a section. It would just be kind of something of note that you would bring up. But
I hear you. That's kind of a fun fact to bring in.
Sure, but I think the interesting part about the physical medium side of the situation could be, I don't know if it has anything to really do with the podcast and what we talk, unless we want to like dive more into like album art and showcase things like that. I think it is cool, but I could also see this branching into its own thing that's not pod related, in the sense that this is interlude spins, if we want to call it, and I could do a showcase of where I got this record, all of that kind of on its own, like social post maybe or video upload, and we could still talk about it. That could be a section, but that becomes something different than I think the album itself. And so I think that would be kind of, it could be for us if we do an album that I physically have, like the teaser for the episode, right? So it could be
yeah, that's exactly where my brain was going. So you hit the nail. You kind of read my mind a little bit. What I was about to say is it could be really cool where in a book club, record club-esque situation, where, assuming this gets to the point that we're talking about, where we want to build a real online community that huddles together around Interlude as kind of its leading beacon here, it's almost like we announce on social media, okay, record of the week is insert record here. And in that kind of announcement post, we break down where you bought it and just a little bit of kind of your story on how we got to having this record be our topic of conversation for the week. We kick that off as a social post. And then 7 days later, we release the episode itself where we provide our deep dive into the record. I think each episode, now granted, if we're going one album at a time, we're going to repeat artists, but I think it would be interesting to share some sort of details about who the artist is, or maybe where they were at in their life at the time of releasing this record. Maybe there's a way that we can kind of tie in the artist themselves and then review the music, review the story, the sound engineering, and just kind of the way it evokes emotions throughout. And then so that episode gets released. Yeah, I think so. And I think that episode gets released 7 days after the kind of like teaser in a way, or the announcement in a way. And that gives not only us, okay, here's the week that we're about to listen to this before we record, but that also gives the audience an opportunity to partake and to be like, okay, cool. I'm looking forward to hearing this album review, or, ooh, that's an album I've never heard before. Let me make sure I listen to it over the course of the next week, so that when episode comes out, I can really be engaged in kind of the conversation and enjoy the episode. So I like this idea.
And I think that goes, whether we do one that I'm sorry, I keep looking over there because those are where they are, but whether I physically have one or not, I could still do that. Because I think for people who don't know, this is obviously, we call this the Bob the Builder section because it's brick by brick. Feel me? So for me, or right now in the process, the videos get uploaded and they always upload to Todd's computer. So you're doing a lot more of the back end work via posting and editing, which, as you've said, personality wise, sure. But once this is over, I kind of sit back and I can't add something. This promotional thing beforehand would be something that I would do outside that would add to the situation, because the whole editing, all that would still focus, but we would decide which album, and then I would pull out the teaser. And whether, because I know you have, we use something, maybe you got to explain to the people, and maybe we've already done this, but I don't remember the back end. What that tool, I think it's called Buffer. I might have it wrong. That posts the videos for us.
Correct. Yeah. So Buffer
it's called Buffer. So yeah, go ahead.
It's a social media management, content management tool. There are plenty of them out there. Buffer, it just so happens to be the app that we use for Interlude. Frankly, I mean, we use it because it allows you to connect up to 3 social accounts for free. So it's not like we have a paid program, but we have our Instagram, our TikTok, and our YouTube all hooked up into Buffer. And so when we post something, depending on our audience, if you're seeing this as a reel, that was posted simultaneously across 3 platforms. If you're seeing it as a TikTok video, again, it was posted same time, same caption across all the platforms. And it streamlines our life on the back end a little bit. It also enables us to record an episode. And then usually following day, like Nick said, I'll sit down and I'll kind of go through the episode and figure out what segments we liked the best, or at least which ones I think at gut reaction sound the best and sound the most engaging. And I can pick them out, I can edit them a little bit, and then I can cue them and schedule them out. So, we've had situations where, talking on one particular topic, we've had 3 or 4 interesting things that were worth noting. And so I can plan them and post them every day or every other day. Or if we have, multitude of topics and we want to kind of bounce back and forth between them, we can schedule days, weeks, months in advance with the social posts. And so, again, with Bob the Builder being brick by brick, we're giving you a little bit of insight into the inner workings of how we run this thing. And obviously, like we're talking about now, the goals that we have to keep this thing growing.
So yeah, my brain goes the sense of I might have to send you the video in order to post it on Buffer, or if I can get access to the account.
Yeah, we can easily get you access.
Easy enough. Okay, so then we could go that route. All right, so that's one way. I personally, if I had to pick, I kind of like the book club version better. Off rip, I think we just start with that. It's an easier lift to start, and then I think we could go into a deep dive if we see fit. But I think it's obviously going to be raw the first few episodes, and you go from there. The one thing that I think is interesting to juggle is I think we could be culturally relevant in terms of time and stuff like that, but we're also trying to create something that maybe people can come back to, right? And so I think the thing that's coming to my mind is, how do you decide which albums to review, right? Because do we do something from an artist that's about to release, that just released? Do you do something that's from way in the past that gets tied in? Like how do you create that, And I think we can create kind of our own realm of how we do that. And eventually, obviously, I could see fans writing in and choosing what that would be. But I still think that's an interesting concept of where to go and moving from there is just like how to decide.
So to your point, I think from the get-go here, from the jump, I think we kind of don't really have a choice but to just be raw with it and to just jump in and give it a shot. And, we'll live and learn just like we have done over the past 16 episodes to have gotten us where we are today.
Right.
To kind of tie in what was kind of grand scheme idea number 2 as a possibility here. And I don't think we're at the stage where we're ready to do this, but where my head goes is pick an artist, say it's, I don't know, J. Cole. Obviously, he's got a pretty extensive discography library right there. There's a possibility that we could have a seasoned approach, and this is the J. Cole season, and we kind of work through his discography episode by episode. But then there's not as much of kind of that teaser approach, because then you just know that we're working through release by release. I think for now, I agree with you that just kind of generic book club, and we decide on our own, in our own heads, that whichever episode we want to do for that week. And then maybe if this thing grows and it turns out that people like the idea of, I just want to go back and listen to the whole J. Cole season. I just want to rip through J. Cole 12 episodes in a row, and then I jump to the next artist, and maybe it's Travis. I don't know. We just we mix it up from there. I think for now, this is a really random idea. And again, everyone who's listening to this, these are raw, these are unfiltered. Nick and I have not pre-discussed any of this. Shout out to my girlfriend, LB. So LB's a big reader.
One time.
It's a big part of why I've gotten back into reading and why I've been doing a lot more reading. And so something that she does, because she's got a lot of books on her shelf that she has never read, but she wants to read everything that's in her personal library right now. So what she did was she went on an app on her phone and created a spinner wheel. And it basically has like kind of generic criteria, not criteria, that's not the right word, but she might spin the wheel and it's like, read a book with a purple cover, right? So she doesn't actually get to just go pick she's not picking an individual book, but it's also narrowing her choices down in a way. And so the reason she did that was because there are a lot of books on her shelf that she never saw herself reaching for. But if the spinner says, hey, read the saddest book that you can come up with on your shelf right now, now she's going to go reach and grab that book because the spinner said so. Now, granted, we don't have to listen to the spinner. It's an app. It's just kind of a randomizer. But what I'm getting at here is you have a very extensive record collection at the moment. And so if we do want to begin with the ones that you have physically in your possession, we could take a similar approach where either we feed every record name into a randomizer and we hit random and it spits out, boom, here's the record that we're going to do that week.
I have an easy answer to that because I do have, this is where the media portion of my brain becomes, people listen. I know Todd's on the ones and twos, but the kid can pull out a keyboard from time to time. I have all the albums, marked on Excel. So we got numbers associated with each product, so you can just put it into a random number generator, and boom. So that's a very easy way to do that. You saying that about LB, I know there's different things online that there's different groups you can join where it's like, it's an app and it creates something. It's like, you got to put in the best song with the longest title. And then you have to go find a song and you put it in and then everyone votes for it that week. Like it's an app that does something like this. It's more song based rather than artist/album based. But I do think there could easily be some sort of random topic generator to pick whatever that may be. Or you kind of just roll with artists that are releasing at the time, and you could even randomly generate that. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity with that, and I think that's easy. I think the random number with what we have to start would work pretty well.
Yeah,
we can always curate that. Doesn't matter.
We definitely can curate it for sure. I only bring that up as a starting point, right? Because if in theory, we're gonna record this episode, finish recording tonight, we'll queue it up to go out later this week, and we'll throw some more kind of Bob the Builder-esque clips up on social media. But then we're going to decide, all right, what's going to be what's going to be next week's episode. We're going to test out this new format. We got to start somewhere. So if that's going to be the latest record you bought, the first record that you bought, or if we're just going to put it into a number generator and let it spit us out from there, that at least gives us a place to start from. And then obviously we can grow off of that.
Yeah. I mean, that also is interesting too, because this is on me, but if I do get new records, it doesn't necessarily mean that is a new record.
No, without a doubt.
The latest
so
one,
like I said.
Yeah. No, that's
this is just a starting point for the episodes. This has nothing to do with the relevance.
Okay, so I think we've spent enough time on that. I think we have the idea and we're ready to roll. From there, it becomes, what do you talk about? Like, we obviously have our section topics now. How does that how do we, carry that over to what we're doing? Is it just going to be we go song by song? Do we start with maybe an artist background first, the time, place that this album came out, whatever
Yeah, I
that
think
was, and then kind of just deep dive it, and then obviously give a breakdown of the top / worst songs?
yeah, if I, with again zero planning, were to map out kind of an episode timeline-esque thing, a plot of how would we walk through any one album, I would think that you start with who the artist is, and again, like where they were in life or in their career, like what stage of their career were they in when this record was released. Then I think it goes into like the overarching story, like what does the whole record tell from start to finish? What is the message that they were trying to convey? And then it might be like if there is, I'm sure you have maybe a better pulse on this already as is, but almost a section of like the consensus best and worst songs on the album. And then I think it could be interesting if we had potentially a disagreement with that, where it's like, this was the song that was the most powerful to me, and here's why. And we get to share at least a little bit of our own analysis. Right. And now, we're not official music critics here. We're not necessarily qualified to talk about this, but music is an art form that's made to be shared with the public, and it's supposed to, people are allowed to hear it and feel it in different ways. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about music. And so in my head, those are the segments that I go to, but obviously you can disagree with me, and obviously these things can change over time.
And I do. Yeah, no, I disagree.
Okay.
Damn, that was nice. I liked you putting that on the table. I was about to like do something. I didn't know what to do though to stop you. That's okay. I'll let the train roll. No, I disagree. You're a music critic. Don't ever count yourself down. It's music. Everybody's a critic of music. So
okay,
that first and foremost is out. I think it's cool to do the background of the artist. I like that. I like trying to paint where they were. I don't know if we'll ever be able to really fully dissect what the message of the album is, in a sense. Like, I think you obviously get the idea, but truly it's the message that it does for you, right? So I think it's just almost like, how did this impact you? And we can talk about maybe the cultural impact, whatever that was also that comes with it. But
okay,
I think it's more, how do you feel about it? Like, that's what's up. So
yeah, I mean, I know that you and I are going to hear songs and hear albums differently, and there's going to be different parts that stand out to you versus what stands out to me, and that's kind of the point of music, like we're saying. I guess I was searching for some way to, I don't want to use the word genericize our commentary, but almost have some sort of a blanket statement that anyone who's listening could relate to, and then we have the chance to share our own thoughts. But at the same time, since we are different people and we're going to have differing opinions, then someone might agree with me on one album and agree with you on another, or feel free to obviously add in a third point of view and share their own unique thoughts.
I don't think that matters as much. I think it's what could be interesting is the order in which we go about things. Like, if it's should we just pick an album real quick? You said J. Cole, so I'll go with 2014. So if we were talking about 2014, if we give a breakdown of him, whatever, then you gave a breakdown of what your initial thoughts were and what that was, and then I go. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Like, I think it could matter order-wise. And not that it matters, like I could go first and you go first, but I think that would be kind of the big thing there of how you go back and forth on that.
Yeah.
Because if it's just more like, you're taking the first song, I take the second song, I don't know if I like that as much as
I'll be honest.
A point blank.
I don't like the idea of a song by song breakdown. I feel like that's going to get.
I don't think we're that.
I don't think that's us.
That already exists too, because that's dissecting a T, and they're going to be better at that than we are. So
sure. Sure.
I
Okay.
think we have to play the nostalgic chord and kind of the more like connection chord than anything else.
Yeah, I think it's the way that the music makes you feel, and the way that the music can bring you together. Here's another interesting idea that just came to me top of my head is oftentimes the album that we're going to be reviewing, for us at least, is not the first time that we heard that album. And so maybe there is a nostalgia factor of like, when I think about 2014, not only can I listen to that album now and have my current present day reactions to it, but it also triggers in my head, like, where was I when I first started listening to this album? And almost like the storytelling aspect of it in that way.
Right. And I think that's where that goes. This.
I also, not to derail us too much, I mean, I know we're already a decent ways into this episode, but again, this is kind of our medium, and we can evolve this however we want. I'm curious to get your gut reactions here, and I think we're pretty clear here that we're going to start on music. We're going to start on records one by one. I'm curious how books might come into play here. Now, naturally, it's a lot easier to listen to a whole album in a matter of a week than it is to try to read a whole novel per se. But I almost wonder if it could be like, hypothetically, there's 4 weeks in a month. Maybe it's weeks 1, 2, 3 are a record review, and week 4 is a book review. And then we do one book a month versus 3 records a month type of thing. Or maybe there doesn't have to be a fixed cadence on it at all. Maybe we can just be like, hey, you know what? We've done a lot of music. We're ready to mix it up with a book. Pick a book that you and I both know. We can kind of skim back through it, get our notes together, make our own version of a Cliff Notes, and kind of do something similar there. The other thing that's going to come into play too is, we've talked a lot about hip hop, but obviously we can expand this beyond that genre. There's plenty of music that could go around. I mean, we mentioned this a few weeks ago on the podcast. My Christmas and birthday kind of combo gift to Nick here, back when I didn't know what his birthday was, but I know what it is now. Damn right, he's still going to get a text a day late, but that's besides the point. But I gave him, F1 Trillion by Post Malone, which is not a rap album. It's kind of a mixture between a country pop, country hip hop type of album, but it's definitely country at the forefront. And myself being a country music fan, now I'm not saying I'm going to make Nick suffer through listening to a Jason Aldean album necessarily, but I'm just saying that we can mix up the genres that we touch into. We can mix up the mediums that we're going into as well, if it's music or if it's books. So
I don't have anything else to say. I think right. You did that.
All right, cool.
I was finna say that, but the only thing that I think is interesting is just the industries as a whole, to touch on that if you'd want, right? Because Grammy's coming up. Like, would we do just like a Grammy specific maybe segment or show, right? Do we do the albums that are in the Grammy Awards? Mm-hmm. You could use that kind of as like a trigger to start. I was thinking about that because I know the nominees came out. I just find that fascinating. I think that could be an interesting start. I'm just going to rattle off some 3 ideas real quick.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead.
I also think that it would be fun to try to keep a segment for Frank Flash. You already heard it here first. Middle C, Francis Cass.
Shout out.
When the boy puts out music, we could do a debate on the certain songs that come out or whatever that is. So that's up for. He would obviously probably be able to join. And then third, another start to this to me is the Popeyes playlist. In telling the story there. So
yeah,
the whole concept of playlist is crazy too. So I don't even know if I want to open up that can of worms, but
that is a whole separate can of worms.
Popeyes playlist could be an interesting start.
You obviously know the Popeyes playlist well. For our listeners who don't know the Popeyes playlist, I'll give a little bit of a background here. So early days of my I can't even say early days of my music listening because that's not true. But basically, moral of the story, when I got Apple Music for the first time, I did not make
That was
like
crazy.
listen, it is what it is. I'm tired, all right, dude. It's been a long.
You were listening to Chief Keef. He said when I first listened to music, it was Love Sosa.
No. So that's not the case. That's obviously not the case. What I really mean is, so when I first got Apple Music, and I have since migrated to Spotify, but when I first got Apple Music, I would create playlists, but the only thing that the playlist was just a catch-all bucket of a genre. So I had a country playlist, I had a hip-hop playlist, I had a pop music playlist, and all that did was it was just a repository of all songs that I knew, songs that I liked that fit that genre. Now, since then, the way that I make playlists has changed, and now I've got playlists that are kind of more, for lack of a better word, like vibes based, things that.
That's how most people do.
Yeah, songs that fit a certain mood, maybe. But the Popeyes playlist is my all-encompassing hip-hop playlist. And so it's got, I don't know how many songs are on it. And the reason it's called the Popeyes playlist is because back when Nick and I were in college, your boy was the one who had the car, seeing as I was driving from New Jersey up to Syracuse versus Nick, who was flying cross country. And we've already gone over on this podcast how Popeyes is so much better than Chick-fil-A. And so we had to go make the Popeyes trips.
Yeah.
But Popeyes wasn't on campus. We had to go drive. We had to go down Genesee so that we could get ourselves some Popeyes. So we hop in the car. And there was only...
That was old Syracuse. I know there's a Popeyes on campus now. For all those broke
that's
fools.
True.
No, we had to earn it. We had to get in the whip. We had to earn that Popeyes. So I don't want to hear about these people walking around picking up Popeyes. Stop that. Get out of my comments.
That's true. For all of our, Syracuse class of 2026 listeners, you don't know what we're talking about here. You don't know the old days of, you don't know when Callio's used to be on Marshall Street there. They don't even know what Callio's was.
Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm trying to talk about Popeyes.
So the Popeyes playlist is still alive and in full effect. It has been migrated to my Spotify account. And I don't even know if Spotify tells me how many tracks are on this. I'm not seeing a number out the gate. But what I can say is that this is 18 and a half hours worth of hip hop music, just consolidated into one grouping. And so anytime we would go to Popeyes, we would throw this on. And so we could very easily, I could hit shuffle and play on this right now and see what the first song that comes up, and we could pick that album and we could deep dive that. To your point, I think talking about playlists themselves is definitely a whole can of worms because people make playlists different ways, different emotions, different moods invoke different kind of listening preferences in people. So that's a whole separate conversation.
This is what I say is if we are more of a book club approach, you can review anything. So the first thing that we review could be the Popeyes playlist. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you could review whatever, right? Like if you had a playlist of 8 songs that you were really stoked about, and there's a really famous playlist of 8 songs, I don't know. That could be something that you review, like a musical. We can review the Grammy Awards. It's not an album. We're just talking about what came out, what was good with that, and what we think should win, what shouldn't win, this and that. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting aspect there where each of the episodes doesn't always have to be a book club review, right? Like it's just a review, or sorry, I meant an album review. It could be a review of something that's going on and just what our opinion was based on that situation. So
yeah, I do like that idea.
I find that interesting. I think that's cool.
I like that idea because it does at least in some ways keep us plugged into current events in a way. So the Grammys are a pretty natural kind of first starting point for the music world of being plugged into kind of a major award show. But there's obviously so much more than just the Grammys in terms of music award shows and ceremonies that happen throughout the course of the year. That also happens in the world of books, where books get awarded different things. And so there's an opportunity for us to play off of that. I agree that we can stay plugged into what's going on today, as well as kind of maintaining, or not even maintaining,
Wait,
but
no, but
evolving.
this is I got it. Dude, I got it.
Go ahead. Lay it on me.
We can still keep the Nevadius Wilburn section. Future. Hendrix. And what you do is we could talk about the album. So normal episode, we pick an album, we talk about it, bam. Then after that, it goes into the Nevadius Wilburn section, and we can mention what is upcoming to drop that week, whatever that is. So that becomes the current event where we could discuss what's about to drop. So then we can talk about what that artist is. We could even maybe in that section talk about what we are going to review the next week, whatever that is. So, and obviously, Future, well, he's not a basketball player. So, it fits the model.
It absolutely does fit the model.
All I'm looking for is the Future. And every time Future drops a mixtape or album, I get excited. And it's usually
how can you
not something that I ever come back to, but it's just like one of the greatest days of the year whenever Future drops. So
how could you not?
This logically has just made a lot of sense in my brain.
Logic is another one. We could review some
watch
Logic.
out. Yeah, watch out.
Time out. We're gonna take a step back.
Yeah,
I like this idea.
Now we're getting too good.
I like this idea of the Nevadius, of keeping the section and at least having the chance to tease in a way, what releases do we know are kind of next on the docket. And I think that there is definitely a world where that can just be kind of fact of the matter of like, here's what's coming out, maybe a little bit of like, here's why we're excited for it. But otherwise, I don't want us to feel obligated in a way. Say we were recording an episode this week, and we say, boom, insert artist here is releasing this record in the next 7 days from now. Like, cool. That doesn't mean that we're going to review that record for next week's episode, right? We still have the flexibility that we could be doing a record that came out 20 years ago. Doesn't matter.
None of it matters. You could do a Nevadius Wilburn section, go into the record store.
Well, I know that is another thing that you've brought up before. That's definitely something that I do think we'll find a way to weave into this kind of new format, new evolving format, is some of your record store experiences, the store itself, either the city that you're in and kind of the music's record store scene within that city, or just talking about on a store-by-store basis. An opportunity to shout out local businesses, right? I mean, usually these are small independent run shops. So it's an opportunity to give them a shout out and, sing them their praises when they deserve it. But it's also, it's all ties into the greater scheme here. And equally,
that's all interesting. I think the biggest thing to be said too on this, that all the listeners, y'all got to remember, this is the Interlude Pod, right? But this is an Interlude Media. So whatever if we go through the music route, which sounds like it's going to be, I'm assuming, and we can pick a different name, but that's Interlude Spins. So that becomes the brand. The podcast would come out as Interlude Spins. We could also have the Interlude Pod, which is an idea to an idea, and have a conversation like this, few weeks, months, whatever it is down the line, and continue having conversations and even bring on guests, whatever it is, with people who are trying to start an idea. We just found our initial idea, which is the spin section. So we're posting online as Interlude Spins, whatever that is. That's where, to me, it comes in. You could talk about books, you could talk about whatever that may be. In addition, because this is Interlude Media, where you're talking about media as a whole. So that's where the brain goes there, where you can look at that big approach. Point being, if I did record store reviews as an Instagram / social media post, that just goes on the account, and that could be something that's not even tied to what the whole even conversation / podcast is. And from that, we would just go off there. Obviously, I have that physical situation, and you, LB, got a lot of books, so I could see something fun coming from that. and I don't know what that is. I know you're a graphic designer. I look at something like cover art, right? Like we could do a whole segment on cover art if you wanted to break that down or something, and that becomes like a little video segment. Or you talk about in the pod. I don't know. You know, that's just part of it. So
no, you're absolutely right.
Like that
I think
aspect.
that there's nothing stopping us from, you know, foraying into different types of content that are more than just here's the full podcast episode and here are the hot takes, kind of the big hitter clips that come out of that episode, and then rinse and repeat on a week-to-week basis. This is something that we talked about last week. Obviously, the idea of creating a dedicated video about a record store review or whatever it may be, you know, that's an additional effort, and that's not a bad thing, but it's just going to take more time, more energy, learning new skills, learning new platforms, whatever it may be, in order to make that a reality. But there's definitely nothing stopping us. I agree that in terms of the socials, I think Interlude Media just stays the handle, and kind of anything and everything can fall under that umbrella. And then from the podcast perspective, I don't know if we would necessarily, at least for now, I don't know if we would launch a new like podcast feed. I don't think that's necessarily the right idea. But I think what we do is this is Interlude episode 18, right? Interlude pod episode 18. And what I could do on the back end is I could folder these 18 episodes away into like Interlude season 1, the idea to an idea. And then Interlude season 2 is Interlude spins. And then we operationally, we just upload like Interlude spins episode 1, Interlude spins episode 2. It all stays.
Is there a way to just folder without season?
I don't know. Probably not.
Because the way I look at this is, if you have spins like pod and then flips, it would be a weird thing. Now maybe season 1, whenever we release season 1, that's just an interlude pod. So if we talk about our process, this and that goes into the season 1 bucket. So that just becomes the bucket. The season is just weird because it's usually a start and an end. And there's not like a start and end to this. We kind of want buckets for the different medias, but I wonder if you could just keep it as seasons. So season 2 spins and roll that.
I don't think seasons will work to meet that, because I think to your point, I think seasons are designed to be a set of chronological order. And so to bounce back and forth between interlude pod, interlude spins, interlude flips as 3 separate streams, I don't think you can, or maybe even should think about blending seasons. So that's something that we'll have to look into on the back end of Spotify, and kind of however that RSS feed feeds out to all of the other podcast mediums. I think that's another just technical opportunity for us to learn, but something that we don't have the answer to just yet, which is okay.
To me, I see it as like we just do a different, because doesn't each episode have like a photo associated with it? Like we have an image that we put.
Yeah, we can change the cover art.
Right. I think we just changed it for whatever that may be. And the season we could just end whenever we want, whenever we feel that we move on, which obviously now we're getting to the end of whatever this season is.
Well, yeah, so I still do wonder, just kind of raw take here, what do you think? Do you think episode 17 goes up and we say this concludes season 1, just because this has been a great learning opportunity for us, right? And now we're going to kick off something new, a new format. I think we can make it kind of a clean break in a way. Yeah,
I think yes, but I don't know if we're going to start that yet. I feel like we also need to figure out when we're going to start the album process and how we're going to choose it and all that. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen by next week. So
I see. No, I hear you. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
So I won't do anything on the back end yet, but that's just something for us to think about, that when we are ready to jump into call it interlude spins, we could at least folder everything that's been kind of our preliminary introduction into interlude and bucket it away and say, okay, here there was a lot of learning that happened in these 17, 18, 20 episodes, whatever it turns out to be. And now we're starting fresh with kind of idea number 2, season number 2.
Yes.
We'll keep it under the Interlude Pod handle, under the Interlude Pod show. But to your point, we can make a variant of the cover art. So maybe what we do, now granted, the branding was something that I looked into a lot back at the start of Interlude, that we landed on this kind of slate blue, gray kind of gradient with the gold accents. From our real dedicated people, if you look all the way back to episode 1, it actually had a red cover on it. And then we changed the branding a little bit before episode 2 came out, and we've stuck with the same branding since. So maybe it just becomes that the Interlude spins maybe are blue, and the Interlude flips maybe have a green background, and then the Interlude Pod has like a gray background or something. And you know, that's really the only thing that changes between it, but at least it's something for us to kind of delineate and identify.
That's it.
Show,
that's what I was
show
thinking.
by
Then you
show.
just write in the name. Like it could be Interlude Pod :spins, and then it's, you know, episode whatever. And
it'll always say Interlude Podcast underneath as the show.
Is great. That's great.
So
we don't want you to go anywhere else, folks. This is a simplistic right. For the L and L. Okay, you're not taking L's. You're stacking L's.
No.
Because you're lovely listeners.
That's right. All right, I like this idea.
I'm gonna do something to them. Watch. If you throw up 2 L's, it actually creates a W. And folks, I want to mention this. W is the only letter in the English. Was that dictionary? No, English
in the language
alphabet. There it was.
Yeah,
there it was.
Alphabet.
In the English alphabet, it doesn't contain the letter. Okay, if you were to try to spell W, where's the W? It doesn't exist.
Right.
It's the only letter that you pronounce it. When you pronounce the actual letter, you don't say the letter. Like if you were to pronounce it the way it sounds, it's the W. It should be renamed the W, not W.
No, I don't think.
I'm not taking
I disagree
2
with
U's.
you there. I disagree with you there.
It looks like 2 U's, but it's a W.
I disagree with you.
That's a W.
I don't think that we should rename the W. That was a very good kind of subtle transition, but I'm going to call it out specifically, folks. I think that's going to conclude the Bob the Builder, and we're going to be jumping into our inspiration here. And the reason I think that this is an inspiration, now this is always Nicky Nickname's inspiration, but I feel the need to interject myself here. To your point, if you take every letter in the English alphabet, 26 letters, and you spell out, like, how would you spell A? It would have an A in it, right? You spell B, it starts with a B. That's all cool. W is different. Right? W is unique in that if you spell out W, you ain't going to put a W in there. But I think that is special. I think that's special. I think the W is unique. And as you said, you take the 2 L's, you put them together, you get a W. W's are what? W's are winners right there. And so I think the inspiration here is that you shouldn't be shy of being different. Don't back down from being unique, because sometimes it's that difference in you that is exactly what will put you over the top and let you stand out from the crowd.
Let them know.
This is supposed to be Nicky Nickname's parting inspiration, folks. And I'll be honest, I don't think Toddy Two-Step does the parting inspiration quite as well as Nicky Nicknames does, but I don't want W to start to conform. I don't want W to change its name and start going by the W, because you don't need to have your own. You don't need to. How do I talk from the perspective of a letter? You don't need to be in your own name in order to have meaning.
Yo, what? No, that was crazy. Be in your own name. You've been on something today. He said the first song I ever heard was Love Sosa. Now he said, I know I talk as a letter.
Dog, I told you I'm tired.
Look,
I had a long weekend, y'all.
I like
That's why we're recording on a Tuesday.
Right here. Hey,
we're recording on a Tuesday. That's right. Shout out to
I like it. I like you kind of doing this inspiration style. You know, you had more passion about this than I did. I kind of was having like only child thoughts. Like, man, why is the W not in the letter? Okay?
You don't have to.
I don't know how you even explain that. So I was really intrigued by this whole situation. But the passion behind keeping W unique, I respect that. So I think you had to close this out, a little inspiration. I appreciate that. But,
all right, well,
folks, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know. You might be hearing, I was about to say one time. It was always one time. But you might be hearing another
always.
Interlude Pod that, maybe next week we'll be doing that. But then this is about to change. So I just want to say to the LNL, the Lunch and Learners, the loyal listeners. Yeah, you know how it is. Here's the deal. You might not hear from us for a few weeks post once we get rolling, as we kind of delve into how this is going to go. But then once it starts, folks, you can't stop a rolling stone unless you got some strong arms. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to call that out. And yes, that pun intended with the music there. And no one reads magazines anymore, so we're coming for the top shot. So that's what's up.
Well, that is absolutely true. I appreciate you, Nick, for another thoughtful conversation here on the Interlude Pod. We appreciate the LNL for
Todd,
always
I
tuning
appreciate
in.
double you, having both of you. You know?
Are you seeing double
Sorry,
right now? There's
I
only
had to,
one
no,
of
I
me.
just had to do it. I just had to do it. Well,
That's
somebody
all right.
in the comments the other day said that it called out Todd for talking to himself. So I guess he's just never seen differentiated white people before. I found that funny. So this was kind of like the double you. You know,
I mean, are we basically the next Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship, the exciting whites? I don't think so, but shout out to my Eagles. Next season, we'll get right back after it with a new offensive coordinator. Sports is something that we've talked a lot about on this podcast, but hey, I think I'm okay with transitioning ourselves, focusing more on the spins and flips here. I think that's where our niche really lies.
Podcast. I'm about to ruin this podcast. I was about to say this is the first podcast without bringing up the Mets, but I just did it.
Oh, here we are.
I think it's just going to naturally come up somehow. It was always the Mets.
It was. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with us, making ties. Obviously, there's a lot of hip hop artists that come out of New York. Most of them, they decide to wear the wrong hat, and that's their faults. But that's okay.
Yeah, you're right.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, depending on which artist we're talking about that week.
There it was. It was good.
That's right. So, folks, that concludes this episode of the Interlude Pod. Maybe the last episode of the Interlude Pod in this format. I don't think so, though. We're definitely going to come back to the Bob the Builder section. So you'll be hearing from us. You'll be hearing these kind of raw takes and the behind-the-scenes business more and more as time goes on. But as you already know, that's Nikki D. I'm your co-host, Todd. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode half as much as we enjoyed making it for you.
Because we had a ball. And all those other real ideas ain't gonna last, folks. All of the bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow.
So without further ado, we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. Good night, New York.
Good night, Connecticut.